Hello, this is Larry with Vantora. We had some requests to make a video to just kind of go over some of the general aspects of how to use the Vantora system. Now, we have a lot of videos out there that tell you how to set it up, but let's look at it as a day-to-day basis, how you're going to utilize it for your facility. So the first thing I want to point out is the menus. So this is the default where things start. So if you just start up the software, it starts here. And actually we're on the registration page. And some of these menu items like registration and waivers, instead of having to go to one and go on down to another one, the button itself is clickable. So for example, if I want to go to the waiver page, I just click on waivers and it takes me straight there. If I want to go to the registration page, I click on it, it goes straight there. So I don't have to choose one of the options below it. I can also just choose that button by itself. Okay, so important thing to know when navigating around. So let's start with the registration page because every time we do, this is where it defaults to. So when the system starts up, it's on the registration page. And you'll see that there's no parties scheduled for the selected date, but it defaults always to today's date, which makes sense because today's the day we're worried about, right? Now we can go look in the past and we can look in the future, but it's worried about today's date. So this makes it look like we don't have any reservations. And I've had people say, well, somebody did a reservation, but I don't see it. That's because it's not on today's date. And you can click on this and go to any specific date. So we can say, do we have anything on the 19th? And no, we don't. Or do we have anything on the 20th? And no, we don't. If you happen to get lucky and stumble upon one, the 23rd, look, there's some reservations. Or this button right here, the little square calendar, is a show all. So this will show me all upcoming reservations that we have on the books here. So for this little company that we've made here, this demo data, Vantora here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different reservations on the books that it kind of looks like. So now let's examine those and see what's happening. When we're showing reservations coming up, it defaults to which one's going to come first. So this is on 9/23. This is 9 a.m. and then after that the one at 11:30 and the one after that is at 2. Then I'll jump to 9:27 at 2 and then 9:28 at 9. So they're going to go in chronological order starting with the most recent. You can change that sort order. That's what these little buttons do up at the top, the little green circles here. So I can also do them by date created. So if I click on this, this gives me and you'll see that I created all these on 9/18, but it changes. This one was made at 2:48 and 2:52 and 2:53 and 2:58, etc. So if I click on it again, it reverses the order. So this is the most recent one now going to the oldest one. Okay, which is a very handy thing to do. I end up getting up every day and taking a look at the registration, show all, and I look at the most recent ones because then I can see, oh, what happened in the last day or whatever. So I can look at all that were created on 9/18 if today's the 18th. Well, I've already looked at the 17th on the 17th, so if there's more down below, I don't need to look at those. But then as I look at these, I can make sure that everything looks good, see if there's any questions, because it is possible for people to ask questions or add notes to their registration. So for example, Kim here added a user note, can we bring cake? So at this point, I could contact her. Either I have her email information here and phone number, and I could contact her and tell her, what our policy is as far as bringing cakes. All right. So it's always good to look and go, okay, what do we have coming? But let's put these in order of scheduled. So that's how the default is. If I just click on this, it's order scheduled, and we're going to show all again. Now, when we're showing these, we're seeing a lot of different colors and icons here in the status. So let's examine what that is. Here is a bachelor party. Okay, so the Johnsons here doing this bachelor party, and we see that they did a $100 deposit, and it has a green check mark. Okay, now this says it's paid by admin. All right, so this was one that I went in and paid by admin. Let's take a look at one that was paid using Stripe. So when somebody goes in and does the reservation, they have three different ways of paying depending on how you set it up in your admin. And off of the general settings, you can scroll on down and you can authorize Square. Excuse me, I said Stripe. Square, I mean. You can authorize Square, or you can put in a PayPal address, or you can use authorize.net. So any one of those three ways of accepting payment you can do. I am actually using Square right now. We have a nice feature in Square that when you take a look at the registration, if we pop one open here, and none of these use Square, but let's just take a look at one. If we mouse over, we see the transaction, when it was done and what it's for, but also with Square, it returns the last four of the credit card and the expiration, which is very handy if you're worried about fraud. You can put a note on your registration that says, make sure that you bring the credit card you used for your booking, and then you can compare it and make sure that the person who has the card has the proper card with the last four digits, the expiration and check-in ID, et cetera, et cetera. So you can do that to know that they didn't use a stolen credit card, or at least if it was stolen, they actually have a piece of plastic in their hand. But most stolen credit cards are just a stolen number, not the card itself. So that's a good way to reduce fraud, is taking a look at that. So let's take a look at some of these other ones here. We can see that we have some red ones here, and there's another green one, and that one's marked paid, but the red ones are not paid. So it tells us what they started to do, but it put it here and it's not paid. So what the deal is, when somebody starts a reservation, we have to hold that time for them for a limited period of time. So somebody clicks that they want a particular day and time, we're going to hold it for the next 15 minutes while they finish the reservation. If they don't finish the reservation in 15 minutes, we're, for all intents and purposes, going to take the inventory of that time and return it back to anybody else to book it. So we no longer hold it after 15 minutes. So just because something is in here does not mean it's occupying that time. This is not actually a registration at this point. This is not reserved because it's red. You are not able to do a waiver in order to hook into this particular one because it's red. It's not a reservation yet. But we leave this information here for multiple reasons. If the customer started this reservation, say at the office, and they get to the point where they have to pay and then decide, well, no, I want to use my other credit card and it's sitting at the house, they can wait, and when they go home, they're going to have an email from us that says, we see you started a reservation, but you didn't pay for it yet. If you want to finish it, please click here. So the system automatically sends that email out to anybody a half hour after they start a reservation if they don't complete it. That will give them the opportunity to go in and pay for it without having to input all the information and start all over again. So that being the case, if that time was taken, let's suppose that this 2 o'clock slot, we only allow one person at a time and somebody else jumps it and they're in there, it's going to say, we're sorry, the time that you selected before is no longer available. Click here for other times and it'll show them the other times that are available. So we're holding this information, but it's not interfering with your other reservations that you have coming up. If you don't want to see the unpaid ones, you can actually just choose to click and not show unpaid ones. So we're still showing all upcoming reservations, but only the paid ones. So it won't show canceled or it won't show unpaid, but let's turn those back on. And so there they are. Now, let's suppose that you're the manager and you get up in the morning and you're checking these and you look at the most recent and then you say, well, heck, Joe Johnson with a scuba reunion, he started doing a reservation and they were going to do the deposit for 9 people, but they didn't pay. If you mouse over the little yellow box, it gives you their name, their phone number, their IP address, all that type of information. So if they gave spent the time to do all that information but didn't pay, it's still a really strong lead. And you may want to call up Joe and say, we see that you started this reservation but you didn't finish. Did you have any problems? Did you have any questions? Anything I can help you with? And you can complete the reservation for him. Okay, so we leave the unpaid reservations in the registration list, even though they're not occupying space, so you can take a look at them and act upon them accordingly. And they may come real if the person does finish the bookings. So now let's take an example of Joe here, and he says, yeah, as a matter of fact, can I pay for this right now over the phone? So an easy way to do that is if we go over this pencil here is the edit for this line. So we're going to edit this line right here. Okay, and it pops us up here. And here's what Joe wanted to do. He wanted to do the scuba reunion and all this type of information. So there's multiple ways to mark this paid. If he had shown up at the door and he just handed me cash, I can sit here and I can go in and I can click the little drop down and I can just mark it paid. That's one way of doing it, and then I save it. After I save it, I want to send him the confirmation, because then that's when the email goes out that says we've reserved your reservation. Please make sure you do your waivers. So if you're changing somebody to a paid status, you have to hit paid first, then you hit save, and then it will just bounce right back, and then you can resend the confirmation. If he's not paid and you want to send another payment reminder saying, hey, you still didn't pay for this. If it is saved in the unpaid status, then just you can send a reminder payment. So, or if somebody calls up and it's a paid reservation where they have all kinds of waivers done, and they're like, I can't find my confirmation email, can you resend it? You can do one better, and you can send them a reminder. The reminder is almost the same as the confirmation, except it also lists the number of people and the names of the people who have completed a waiver. That way the host knows how many people have done the waivers. So there's some changes in there. But now let's suppose Joe's over the phone and he says, I just want to pay for this. Again, you could run the credit card locally on whatever local device you're using in order to run credit cards, and then mark it paid as admin, and then add some applicable notes. The admin notes are never seen by the customer. So, and realistically, the user comments are probably never seen by the customer. User notes are coming into you. Admin notes are for you. So if I want, I could put a note in here like customer came in the door and paid locally, or whatever I want to say, and then I save it. In the door and paid with cash on 9/18, and then I'm going to stick my initials down there. Okay, so I could put that in. Now if I save this, and we're going to change them to a paid status, just to show you how that works. So now if I look at the registrations and I'm going to show all of the upcoming reservations, I can see that here is the scuba reunion. There's Joe. And if I mouse over this, it says $124, and that was marked paid by admin. And here's my notes that I put in. Customer came in the door and paid with cash on 9/18, Larry. All right, so that's one way of doing it. Let's go back and let's edit this. And we're going to change it back to an unpaid status. I'm going to delete that line and I'm going to save it. So the other option we can do at this point is we can go edit this as the customer. So maybe Joe said, you know, the problem was I didn't want to go at 9 a.m. Is there any chance we can move this to 10 a.m. and actually I'm going to have 8 people, not 9 people. So to make all those changes, we want to edit it as the customer. So it's basically going to throw me back to his reservation with all the information there. Okay, and we can go change the number of people if we want, or we can change whatever we want. Let's assume that he's going to leave the number of people the same, but he wanted to add 3 more slices of pizza. So now we're sitting, and he wanted to skip the hand grenades. Okay, so these are add-ons for our package. So now we know he's got 9 people that are doing the VR experience. Here's all his stuff. Instead of 9 a.m. though, he wanted to change the time. We don't have 10 available. So this tells us in real-time availability what we have for him. So we can tell him, look, we can't do 9, but we can do 11:30. He said, yeah, that sounds good. So we're switching him to 11:30 on the same day. All this information. We took out the hand grenades, add the pizza slices. Here he is. So he's got a $100 registration deposit. He's got $6 in pizza slices. He owes us $106. We have to agree to the terms and conditions. So you may want to read those to him. You don't get your money back. There are no refunds, etc., whatever your terms and conditions happen to be. So once we're at that point, then we can hit checkout. When we hit checkout, if we're using Square, it just pops up a place right on the screen for us to put in the credit card number, the expiration, the 3-digit code, and the zip code, and then you hit submit payment. If you're using PayPal, it will pop up a new PayPal screen, and then it will ask also for their address and their email and their phone and all that stuff. So asks a few more questions trying to prevent fraud. You can Square is going to ask less questions, but you can just double check the 4 digits on the credit card when it comes in, like we showed you. So it's up to you on which system you use, and those are the ways that you do it. So if I would put in a credit card and hit submit payment, it would just show that he is paid. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the admin here, and let's just take a look at the registrations again. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is all of these registrations are out in the future. So in order to get a better feel for how you're going to work with things on a daily basis, let's move some of these to today. Now you can see we still have Joe marked as unpaid. All right, so he's red. Here's a paid one. Here's an unpaid one. Here's one. And this one is interesting. It's got a little yellow hand on it, and this is held. So let's suppose instead of Joe paying for it, he said, look, I've been there 10 times. We've had our groups there a whole bunch of times. I really don't want to lose that time, but I can't pay for it right now over the phone because I have to bring you a company check tonight. Is there any chance you can hold the space for me or whatever? So I can say sure, and I can go down and I can mark it held. So held is the same as paid from the standpoint that people can do waivers for it. It's not going to let anybody else book that time depending on availability. So it's just acting like a paid reservation. But when I go and I take a look at what's going on, we see the held sign. So if they come in, I know I don't have their $106 yet. He still has to pay me for that. Okay, so those are the different statuses you can set up. Now, in order to understand how things work on a daily basis, let's assume that these people all want to come in today. Okay, so I'm going to click on the little pencil, and we're on the 18th here, and I'm going to edit their day, and I'm going to change it to today. So there's a held reservation that we're changing to today. And now I'm going to go back to my registration. And when I do, I can see we have something. Instead of saying there's nothing for today, since we moved one to today, there is. But let's show all again. And this is going to show the first one coming up. So there's the one on the 18th. But let's go to the Joe Scuba one. And he decides he's going to come in today as well. So I'm going to mark his and to the proper date and save it. And if I was changing these and saving them, I would want to send them a confirmation email on it so they know that the date has been changed. So here's the 9/23, and I'm going to change that to 9/18, and I could hit save on this, and then after I save it, if I want, I can resend the confirmation. Okay, so now let's just take a look at what our registration looks like. Now we have this going on. Okay. I've got a couple of held ones here, and I've got a paid for one. Let's just go back to the show all one more time. And here's the first 3 that I have, but here's this one from Kim and this one from Larry Jones. So let's just take this Larry Jones one, and we're going to change that to today's date as well. So now I've got a bunch of reservations on today, which is what I was after. So I can see that they're here. So I'm at the shop. People start walking in the door. The first group coming in is at 9 a.m. And here it is. It's the Smith Revenge. So it's Bob Smith. And I can mouse over this. I've got all their information. I can see that they just wanted to do a $100 deposit. We held it for them for whatever reason. The next thing in line, I can see waivers. So 6 out of the 12 people for this group have done waivers. So I can click on the waivers and it shows me who has completed them, and there they are. So I got Susie Smith and Jimmy Smith and Freddie Smith and Daddy Smith, and so here's the people who have done waivers for this group. These are the people who have done waivers for today. All right, so all the different groups that we have. So when I move a group from one day to another, if waivers are done for it, the waivers travel with it. Okay, so it makes it easier for you to check people in. So let's suppose the Smith group gets here and they go, yeah, well, it turns out Fred is a little too young. Fred's only 2 and too young to participate in this. So we can select all, but then I'm going to remove Fred, and then we're going to check them in. So when I check these people in, you'll see they all get little green check marks here. That tells us how many people are there for that group, so we can see that. And we can see that for the player count for today, we have 13 people are all the people who are scheduled for today, but 5 have been checked in. Okay, so there's 8 that haven't been checked in. So, and I can click on these. If I click on the 8, it shows me the 8 people who are not checked in, and I can show them either sorted by party name, or I can just look at them alphabetically. So here's everybody. We got a bunch of Joneses and Smiths, and we can look at them alphabetically, or we can associate them with their given parties. All right. The other interesting thing that's kind of fun is you can click on any of these numbers, and based on that, it will give you stats up here. So for everybody who has done a waiver today, whether checked in or not, 69.2% of them were minors. The average minor age was 12.7, and there's 9 of those. The average adult age is 51.3, and if you forget what all those little abbreviations stand for, that's the information there. You can mouse over and it gives you the key for what those things are. So it just gives you little stats. You can see how many people at what age brackets are we kind of running. Is our average age going up or down? It's been interesting for us to check occasionally when we were promoting a Nerf game versus an axe throwing game. Obviously, we're going to have different age brackets. So now we have this group, and we've already checked in their waivers, but we need to check in the group as well. There's a little window sitting, or a little door sitting next to their information, and this is a check-in. So if I hit that, do you want to check in this reservation? Yes, I do. And it turns the whole line yellow, so it's very easy to see that that group is there already. So you can use a lot of these features how you want. You don't necessarily have to use them the way we do. But what we do is somebody comes in, and when the host is there and we have started working with their payment, either we took their money or ran their credit card, or we put the credit card in the drawer because we're running a tab, or however we're doing it. Once we've checked in that person, we highlight that thing yellow so we know that group is there. Now, maybe not all of their players are there. They only have 6 out of the 12 people so far, so we have to wait for some other people come before we get them out playing because they've got another car full that's 5 minutes behind them. So when they come in, doesn't look like we have waivers on them, so we will have them fill out waivers at a little kiosk, and then they will instantly populate into our system, and we can go check in those as well. Okay, so that's how all that gets run there. Now the next group comes in, and here's the scuba reunion. So Joe comes in, and so we're going to check in that group. Okay, so we're going to check in them, but nobody has done a waiver. I'm like, well, dude, what's the deal? Nobody has done a waiver. Well, maybe they were just here a week ago. And he said, yeah, we were here. Do I have to do a waiver again? No, I can look you up by name. So what's your name? And when you type in, if you're on the waiver form, you can type in and you can search by name, either first name or last name, or a combination of both, by date of birth, email, or phone. So we're going to search for Joe. And well, I don't have anybody named Joe. Okay, let's just look for Joh. And shucks, we're not doing too good there. How about Jon? Well, heck, if I look for Jon, I see all these Joneses. And so whether the Jon is in the first name or the last name, it's going to pop up to me. All right. So, and you can search for both together. So if I know that the first name or the last name is Jones and the first name begins with a B, that's going to give me all the Joneses that have a B also in their name. So there's Jones and B, so that'll find Big Daddy Jones and Bill and Bing. So maybe it's this individual that we're checking in. Okay, so I can check them in. If I want any additional information on that person, I can click on the little pencil, and this will tell me that Big Daddy Jones is the person that we did here. This is his waiver on 9/18, and he also did a waiver for all his kids. So he did a waiver for Nancy and Junior and Bing and Bill and all these people, and that they were checked in today. So when you look up somebody, you can see how often they were here. Do they have any other future dates? When did they play in the past? Gives you all this information. If for any reason I needed a copy of his waiver, if I click on this little uh, picture of a printer icon, it pops up the entire waiver complete with signature and whatever other information you're asking on the waiver. Okay, so there is all of the information from the waiver, and that's pretty much how we're going to handle the registrations as they go through. Next coming up is the Mimi Johnson party. So we're going to check them in. They show up. Uh, so we'll click. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I am. And none of them have done waivers, so I got to find them. Let's go find these Joneses. They come showing up. Let's check them in. I can click on the 6/7, which means 6 out of the 7 people have done waivers. I checked in Big Daddy. Now the rest of his group shows up. So I hit select all on those and I check them in. So now all of those are checked in as well. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in the Jones party that are checked in. So now we're ready to take their money and go. Now you can also uncheck people. We leave everything yellow for the day, and that tells us who was in and who was not in as far as the groups. So if I go back even in history and look, I can see, well, that group didn't show up, while I have some other people that actually use this to say the Bob Smith group left, so they uncheck them. That way they know, well, I still have 3 groups here and that group is gone. So there's a lot of features and functionality and how some things work here, and there's different ways to accomplish it, however you want to do it that runs smooth for you. But in a nutshell, that is how you run through the options for checking people in, looking at the registration, making sure that you have their waivers, checking those in, and taking a look at people, knowing whether or not they're paid or not paid, etc. So hopefully that quick little overview gives you some insight on how to use your Vantora system from the aspect of somebody standing behind the counter. You're pretty much going to check the people, see if they're paid, check their waivers, and then whether or not you give them wristbands or send them, going or whatever. That's kind of how the system works. So if you have any questions concerning any of this, there's also a lot of videos on how to set up a lot of this stuff, which will go into in depth some of these different aspects that we've dealt with. But hopefully this overview helps you understand your Vantora system a little better. All right, thanks. And as always, reach out to us anytime if you have additional questions concerning how to run your Vantora system. Thanks.